Hello and welcome to tonight's AS French session. We'll be focusing on pronunciation and the subjunctive. It says 2023 on the slide, but we're obviously 2024. So bonjour, je m'appelle Madame Pritchard, je travaille à e-sgol Gymraeg Brodir. Les objectifs ce soir sont comment améliorer votre prononciation du français pour l'examen oral et quand et comment utiliser le subjonctif. So to start with, we'll be looking at pronunciation in preparation for the speaking exam, and then we'll move on to look at the subjunctive, so when and how to use the subjunctive tense mode. So focusing on pronunciation first of all, it's really important that you understand the sounds of French. So the alphabet is an excellent place to start. If you lack confidence in the alphabet, there are lots and lots of videos on YouTube to help you. There are songs and there are explanations by French people, which will really help you perfect those French sounds. Some of them can be quite tricky. So I would advise you to do that if you're not quite sure. Especially certain ones, for example, and U and X, the ones that maybe people tend to find tricky. So if you watch the original lesson, it's a recorded lesson on the e-sgol site. There's a lot more detail, so I'm just going to skim through it today and do a summary, and then any more information you need, you can go and watch the full lesson in your own time then. So first of all, accents. So for example, la cédille, l'accent aigu, l'accent circonflexe, l'accent grave, and le tréma. So on the PowerPoint itself, I explain all of these sounds. So for example, the la cédille makes an S sound depending on the vowel that follows it. The accent aigu is A, etc. So go through the PowerPoint and there's a lot more information there for you. The next thing I looked at was a liaison, which is when you pronounce the ending consonants of some words if it's followed by a vowel or the letter H. So for example, les enfants. Because normally the first word would be les and the S would be silent, but because it's followed by a vowel, there's a liaison sound there, so the S becomes a Z because it begins with a vowel, and we say les enfants. And yet again, there's a little link here if you wanted to have a look in more detail at this technique. And an extra one here is un exemple, so you actually say the N because of the E, and des exemples, the S becomes a Z sound again because of the vowel. However, there are always exceptions to rules in French. So les liaisons interdites are forbidden liaisons where it doesn't work in the way that we would expect. So the times when you don't use the liaison are, so before H aspire, so en haut and les héros. Okay, so we don't use the liaison there. Before ons and oui, after names, proper names, Robert and Paris, we don't liaise those last letters there. After singular nouns, after et, after interrogative adverbs and toujours, so that's question words basically, and after inversion. So if you inverted parlez-vous espagnol, you don't liaise the S there. There are also liaisons facultative, optional liaisons, where it's up to you if you pronounce them. And if you do use the liaison, it just makes it a little more formal. Here then also there's a grid that I found online that just gives you examples of when you do it and when you don't do it, the liaison. And also here we have a list of the letters that sometimes will change their sounds. So for example, D could become a T. So if we say grand, for example, followed by a vowel, then it would become a grand, whatever it would be. The next part was the guttural R, so it's R. that sound. There's an image here to show you. And I tell the children in school it sounds like a cat purring. So a bit like a cat when it purrs in its throat. It takes practice, but you'll get there. So some examples, we have rue, regarder, partir, respirer, frère, and rouge. So you could practice those words just to get the hang of it. Les lettres muettes, so silent letters. At times, as I'm sure you're aware, this is probably drilled into you from year 7, certain consonants in particular, there's E there as well, will be silent at the end of a word. So we have some examples here. Autres sons phoniques importants, so other important phonetic sounds. I'm going to go through a couple of them with you. The je sound. Je. So just to sound more French. We have all of these sounds here, all of these groups of letters or letters, all have the same sound. They all sound like E. So, j'ai joué au foot, vous jouez au foot, il jouait au foot, j'aime le foot et le rugby, j'aime jouer au foot, je jouais au foot, and il jouait au foot. So as you can hear, there are lots of different tenses here. We have the perfect, we have the present, we have the imperfect, we have and, we have the infinitive, imperfect again, and they all share the same sound. So in an oral exam, for example, or a listening exam, how would you know which one it was? Well, the rest of the sentence will give you a clue as to which one. So for example, j'aime jouer au foot. We know that after you've conjugated the first verb, j'aime, the jouer will be in the infinitive. So that's how we know which version of the verb it is. We also have then the an, on, en, which have the same sound, on, and we have the in, which has an sound. So for example, anglais, oncle, enfant. So they all have the same sound. And then intéressant, it's not intéressant, it's intéressant, enfin, lapin. So it's very tempting to say in, but it's not in, it's un. Intéressant, mince, fantastique, intelligent, en France, 20, décevant, 15, singe, cousin, etc. And there are a couple more again here. So we have poisson, vin, jeux vidéo, les ciseaux. So the X is silent there. Les dents, le pain, le midi. So this is more of an alphabet kind of thing. Le midi, la poule, and la lune. Okay, and then we have another one. So la maison, la tête, la sorcière, le gorille, les frilles, Espagne, la pollution, la question, le requin. And then just for a bit of fun, les virlangues are tongue twisters. Ils peuvent être un bon moyen d'améliorer la prononciation. Okay, so there are a few fun ones here. I don't know if you've had a practice, if you watched the video. So for example, je cherche Serge. And if you practice, you can get quicker and quicker. Je cherche Serge. And it's a real tongue twister, they're quite fun. So, à chacun son choix, se dit sa sœur Sylvie, suivant son chemin. Ce vert vert, c'est vert, c'est versé, c'est vert vert. 5 chiens chassent 6 chats, dont tâton, tâton, tâton. La mule de juge bute contre le mur. Ce glougou a voulu tout ce qu'il a vu sur le menu. La robe rouge de Rosalie est ravissante. Lily lit le livre dans le lit. La saule a salé son lit, mais la mère a lavé le lit que la saule a salé et la saule rissole dans la casserole. On part de la gare Saint-Lazare pour les ports de la mer du Nord. Que c'est crevant de voir crever une crevette sur la cravate d'un homme crevé dans une crevasse. Si ceci se sait, ses soins sont sans succès. Son chat chante sa chanson. Posez vos gros pots d'eau au chaud. Toi, tortue, trotter sur un trottoir très étroit. And if you want more practice, again, you'll find these on YouTube videos. Okay, so comment réussir? So how can you succeed with regards to pronunciation? Use websites, go online and take advice from French people. You could listen to French songs and podcasts, videos, read text aloud, because in your head, it's much easier to just read in your head and it sounds great. When you read it out aloud, you realise that you need more practice, myself included. It just sounds, it just takes practice because it sounds different. Watch French TV films or TV programs, practice speaking French aloud as much as possible, in the shower, in the car, in your bedroom, if you're walking the dog. Every little bit of practice will help build your confidence, and revise the rules. Again, that would be online. And the last bit of advice is using Duolingo. I would say that it's a really good way to practice pronunciation. There's listening and speaking tasks, so you can hear the French and then you repeat it for accuracy. Right, so that was the pronunciation. We'll move on now to the subjunctive. So this is a list of tenses in French, and what you could do is just go through, you can read the information in your own time on all the other tenses and go through and just check that you know them and what practice do you need. And if there are any, for example, le plus que parfait, that you feel, oh, I'm not sure about that one, then you can go and do a little bit of research and practice any tense then that you feel less confident with. But we're going to focus now on le subjonctif présent and then a little tiny bit on le subjonctif passé. So, le subjunctif in French, it's used in dependent clauses to indicate some sort of subjectivity, uncertainty, or unreality in the mind of the speaker. So feelings like doubt and desire require the subjunctive. It's a mood rather than a tense. It's so tempting to say tense. But yeah, it's a mood, as well as expressions of necessity, possibility, and judgment. So, par exemple, il faut que tu prennes le train ce matin. So, tu prennes, coming from the verb prendre. Je suis contente que vous visitiez Paris. So, you can see the extra I there. And on interdit qu'elles aillent à la boîte de nuit. So, again, that's the subjunctive mode of the verb aller. And a little cartoon there as well. Okay, so normally, as English speakers, we face two problems with the subjunctive. So firstly, when to use it? And secondly, how does it work? So let's have a look. So, quand utiliser le subjonctif? The subjunctive is always preceded by que. And this little image here just gives us some idea of the types of things that you would use for it. So, for example, le doute, l'opinion à la forme négative, l'incertitude, le désir, l'impossibilité, so they etc. So they give you examples there. Another really basic way of looking at it is if something is known for sure to be a reality, it's definite, you would use the indicative. If the chance of the action becoming reality is more than 70% indicative, but if it's less than 70%, if there's an element of doubt, subjunctive, but that is a very basic way of looking at it. So that's when. So the next big question is, comment former le subjonctif? So how would you form it? Now, for regular verbs, it's actually quite simple. So you take the il, third person plural, form of the present tense of the verb. You drop the ent ending to form the stem. And then you add the subjunctive endings, which are eese, ions, iez, ent. So if you look at those, they're almost identical to the indicative, so the normal present tense, apart from the I there with ion and the I there with ie. Okay, so the others, they would look as if it was the indicative tense, or mode, I should say, mode. So an example here, So you've got the il form, ils deviennent, of devenir. You cross off the ENT, you drop the ENT, so we have devient, and then you add the ending. So if it was je, you add the E, and it would be je deviens, and that's the subjunctive mode. This is another example. So we have the verb parler. So indicatif, you have je parle, tu parles, il elle parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il elle parle. So this is something we're very familiar with by now. And then le subjonctif, quand je parle, que je parle, que tu parles, qu'il ou elle parle, que nous parlions, que vous parliez, and qu'il ou elle parle. So as you can see in purple there, the only two that deviate from the indicative are the nous and the vous forms, where we've just simply added an I in there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of confidence that it's not as tricky as one might think. However, as ever, there are irregulars, okay? So les irréguliers. And I would say the most common ones and the ones that you should learn first, I would say, are être and avoir. So we've got the indicative there, which you know anyway, and then the subjunctive. So for example, que je sois, que tu sois, qu'elle soit, nous soyons, etc. And then we have que j'aille, que tu ailles, qu'elle aille, etc. there. Okay, so I would certainly advise you to learn these two verbs. Also, other really useful verbs, aller. Aller definitely is essential. And then we have venir, we have savoir, and we have vouloir. And also we have faire and pouvoir. Okay, so faire also another really, really common verb. So if I were you, I would do some revision notes and write out these verbs so you have them all on one sheet and you can practice them then. In the past tense, le subjonctif au passé, it's pretty easy. Once you've learned avoir and être in the subjunctive, that would be your auxiliary verb, and then the past participle just comes in as normal. So for example, nous sommes contents que vous soyez venus. So the only difference there is soyez. And elle est désolée que tu n'ailles pas pu venir. And again, the only difference there is the I. Okay. So what I would suggest is that, yeah, you learn the basics, you learn how to conjugate the regular verbs, and also that you learn to conjugate the main irregular verbs such as avoir, être, aller, faire, pouvoir, and so on. And then it's up to you how you learn. You could maybe learn a few key structures that use the subjunctive. If you go back to the full lesson that I did, and it's on the e-sgol site, I have lists and lists of structures that take the subjunctive. So if you look through those, you can maybe choose some that you feel you would use regularly, for example, in the essay or in the speaking exam, and then practice some sentences, especially for year 13, where you get to prepare a speech on a topic. I would definitely put in a few subjunctives there just to show the examiner that you can do it and you do understand it. And also for the essay, you could just learn a few set structures that you would use in any type of essay that could come up, for example, in the introduction, conclusion, so that you can just show that you can do it. So, should we give it a go? Allons-y. So, we did this one in the lesson, so hopefully you know this one. So, je veux que nous, and then we have to conjugate partir en vacances in the subjunctive, so that would be partions. So the only thing we've done there is add the I. Il souhaite que vous travailliez beaucoup en classe. Elle voudrait que tu écrives au prof. Nous désirons qu'il sorte moins souvent. Vous aimeriez que je choisisse un bon film ce soir? Je souhaiterais que nous lisions le journal ensemble. Elle désire que je regarde la série Bob l'éponge. And ils aimeraient que je vende ma voiture. So we did that one in the on the lesson. So these now are extra ones. If you're watching this live, then maybe I'm going to go a little bit too quickly for you. But what you could do then is rewatch this session and see if you could answer the questions and pausing after each one. So what you have to do is just translate the sentence into English and then put a tick if it's a subjunctive or a cross if it's not. So, je veux partir avant qu'il rentre. So, I want to leave before he comes back, and that is the subjunctive. Oh, sorry, I'm going too fast. Il aime manger, mais il préfère... Sorry, il aime nager, mais il préfère manger. So, this one is not the subjunctive. Je n'aime pas que tu viennes ici tout seul. So, yes. I don't like you coming here alone. So it's that you come. So there's the subjunctive there. Number 4, numéro 4. Il faut se souvenir que cela n'est pas toujours possible. We can see the verb here. Is it the subjunctive? No. So we must remember that isn't always possible. Numéro 5. Qui que ce soit, je n'ai pas d'argent. So there's the verb there. Is that the subjunctive? Yes, it is. Whoever it is or whoever it may be, the subjunctive, I don't have any money. Number 6, numéro 6. Il semble être charmant. Any subjunctive there? No. He seems charming or he seems to be charming. Numéro 7. Il exige que nous payons immédiatement. Can we see the subjunctive there? Yes, we can. He demands or he is demanding that we pay immediately. Numéro 8. Je viens avec vous pour vous que je puisse conduire. Je puisse. Is that the subjunctive? Yes, it is. I'm coming with you provided that I can drive. Numéro 9. Elle est contente d'avoir sa propre chambre. Nope. She's happy to have her own bedroom and there's no subjunctive there. Numéro 10. Qu'elle paye ou non, je n'y vais pas. Subjunctive? Yes. Whether she pays or not, I'm not going. Okay, so there's the subjunctive there. And then this one is the opposite way around. So you translate into French and you have to decide if they require the subjunctive. Now, again, I would advise you to pause, answer, and then play when you watch the video back so that you're able to check if your answers were correct, because this is trickier. So number 1, I have 3 brothers and they are not coming. So the answer would be j'ai 3 frères et il ne vient pas. Pas de subjonctif. Numéro 2, although he is fit, he cannot dance. Bien qu'il soit en forme, so bien que takes the subjunctive, so we got soit there, en forme, il ne peut pas danser or il ne sait pas danser or il ne danse pas. Numéro 3, I'm very happy to be here. Je suis très content ou heureux d'être ici, so pas de subjonctif. He is important and the work must be done. Il est important et le travail doit être fini. Or il faut faire le travail. And numéro 5, before we leave, buy a drink. So there are 2 ways of doing this one. So without the subjunctive, avant de partir, achète un verre. So we can use the infinitive after avant de. Or, avant que nous partions, there's the subjunctive, acheter à boire. Numéro 6, I think that we are going this evening. Je pense qu'on va ce soir, ou nous allons ce soir. No subjunctive. Numéro 7, wherever you go, I'll follow. Où que tu ailles, je te suivrai. or n'importe où tu vas, or peu importe où tu vas. There's a few ways of saying this. There's a subjunctive there, and there's no subjunctive there. I like that you travel alone, numéro 8. J'aime que tu voyages tout seul. So that's the subjunctive there, because we have the que, j'aime que. The doctor orders that you rest this evening. Le docteur ou le médecin ordonne que tu te reposes ce soir. So yes, there is a subjunctive there. And numéro 10, whatever I do, they criticize me. Quoi que je fasse, ils me critiquent. So there's the subjunctive of the verb faire there. So that was a bit of practice. So comment réussir? So again, some tips. So learn some of the set phrases when the subjunctive is required. So if you look on the previous PowerPoint, you'll see quite a few lists there. Try to include a couple of examples in the written or speaking, or both written and speaking exams. Learn some set phrases that include the subjunctive. Learn the most common verbs such as avoir, être, aller, faire. And learn how to recognize the subjunctive so that it doesn't scare you in the reading or listening exams. Okay, so that's our objectives done. And just to finish off, I thought that we'd look at a couple of examples of verbs that have been conjugated in several tenses, and you could perhaps create something like this with some of the more tricky verbs. Well, you could start off with easier verbs such as avoir, être, aller, faire in all of the tenses, and then look at some of the more trickier ones. So, for example, the subjunctive of voir, and we have here as well le participe présent, so seeing, etc. There's lots of different tenses here, and also in the middle, I just put 2 examples of idioms that use the verb voir, that include the verb voir. So you could plan something like this for a variety of verbs as part of your revision process. There's savoir, again in a variety of tenses. It's the same layout, the same tenses, but just a different verb. So there's savoir. And lire is another tricky one sometimes, similar to voir. And finally then there is falloir. And this one obviously is a lot shorter because it's an impersonal verb. There's only one conjugation, so it's much easier, but it's still a tricky one. It's a really useful verb structure, and I would advise that you learn it. So if you could create this template, you could even I don't know if you can take it from my PowerPoint, I'm not sure, but it's pretty simple to do. You just create boxes on the PowerPoint or a Word document, whichever you're using. Put all the tenses, and then when you conjugate one verb, you can copy and paste the boxes and then just change the verb to another verb. That's what I did here. It's the same structure, the same boxes. I just changed the verb, and it's a really nice way of revising tenses. So, vous avez des questions? Do you have any questions? If so, please pop them in the box and I'll try to get back to you at the end of the session. So finally, just bonne chance, good luck for your exams. I hope it all goes well. Remember, whatever you put in, you get out. So work hard, practice lots, do your best, and I'm sure you'll be really successful. So thank you for listening, and au revoir.